Okay, so for this one, what I was saying is, whenever you get your drawing done, or excuse me, your painting done and created, of course your style is going to come through. If you look on my painting very closely, whoop, you can still see my or paint strokes on top of there. That's I just wanted it to look a little bit loose.
Yeah.
If you want to smudge them together and blur everything, make it look a little tighter, that's on you as well. And if you look at the photograph of mine, of especially the highlights of the grapes, you can see there's just a few highlights, and I've been a little bit more liberal. I've made it a lot lighter, and so they stand out a lot more. The next thing, once you've got your composition created, a professional would look at this and they want to make sure it has good contrast, good highlights, and good shadows. Right now this looks pretty good, but I was showing Nick, if I turn on a curves adjustment, watch what happens. So I get something like this. My colors get richer, you can see the highlights in certain areas get lighter, my shadows get a lot darker than this before. This almost looks a little bit gray.
Yeah.
So here's how to do that using just your curves. If you'll pull up your adjustments, first of all, make sure you're on the topmost layer. So
Are you recording this?
I am recording, yes.
Okay.
Make sure you're on the topmost layer so this affects everything. And these adjustments at the top tend to affect your brightness and contrast, your levels, and also your color exposure. I'm going to use the curves, and it's going to add a curves adjustment, and that's what this allows you to do. Have y'all used this or played around with it much? Okay.
I've used it in photos, but never in
Yeah. Here's the cool thing. You've got this line, and this little mountain range in the background is kind of the computer showing you how much darks you have and how many lights you have. So there's lots of dark areas, a little bit of light areas, and all the grays in between. If you click on this line, you can drag it and kind of shift everything towards one area. So if I shift it this way, you can see it's lightening up everything. If I shift it this way, it'll darken up everything. And yeah, and so very quickly, I'm getting these darks. What I do is, instead of clicking just once, you can actually add more than one. So I want, in some cases, it to be lighter, and if I click again, in some cases, to be darker. And actually, I've done the opposite of what I want. So I'm going to pull this one up this way, and this one down this way. So now I'm getting my darks darker, and my lights lighter. And it's real subtle. You can go, real wrong with this very quick. So fewer clicks generally tends to be the best, and this gives me a little bit of control over where I want those highlights and shadows to be. I can edge it up, or I can get those darks to be really, really dark, almost a chiaroscuro, type painting. There's a Caravaggio painting right there, and then make everything darker to stand out. All cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way of just getting a little bit more punch to your digital painting. The next area, and I found this out doing photography and using photography in a layout, is try to get a color that's more dominant than the other. Right now there's lots of colors on here, but if I do an overcast of one color, almost like turning on a blue light or turning on a red light, it'll make all of the colors harmonize with one another. Here's how I do it. I use what's called a gradient overlay. And I believe I used a blue. I'm going to turn it on. And well, first of all, I've got it really dark. Let me turn on this one. So now I've gone from this type of color scheme to almost a blue overlay. And the blue is mixing in with certain areas, and it's giving it a unified kind of look.
Did you put the blue over the whole image?
Over the whole image. Almost. I'll show you how I can clean it up too. But instead of every little color kind of popping out, I see lots of blue, lots of yellow, I can mute it down, and there's a little bit of blue now mixed in with everything. This is one way of unifying it. So what I'll do now is, it's another adjustment, not black and white, there it is, gradient map right here. With this one, you can choose the color, and by default, it's actually going to change everything to whatever your color is, which could be one thing. But I'll open it up and show you what it's doing. So what it's doing is, it's looking at the darkest areas are turning red, all the way into the lightest areas, in this case, are turning this, this shade of gray. So if I was to change it up, I can make it go from red to white on this area. And I can move this around to darken it or lighten it up. So if I wanted to give everything a kind of a red overcast, I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep it just like this. Here's the fun part. Change your blending mode from your adjustment layer, in this case, from normal to something else. You can use multiply, sometimes overlay works. Let's try multiply and see what happens. So here to multiply, now it has a red overcast to it. So there's with the red overcast, there's with the blue overcast. So very quickly you can change up the look and feel of it. I can warm up a scene just by adding that. You want me to do it again?
No.
I'll show you again. This is actually kind of how Instagram works. Tell you what, I'll add another, and it's kind of cool to this. So gradient map, choose whatever colors you want. Let's get wild. Let's do one of these predefined ones. So now I can show you, you can add as many colors as you want. So the midtones in this case are turning red, the darks are blue, and the highlights are yellow. We'll say okay to that. If I change the blending mode of my overlay, let's try multiply, see what happens. It looks like this. Let's try what screen would do. I can change it out to look like that. And this is where kind of the fun, funky little things you can do with it go in. But you got to have your lights and darks well defined. Some of them work better than others. Yeah, it's kind of cool. You can do just a straight up color, and so it'll recolorize everything. I usually find that either multiply or color burn works the best. And you can see in this case it's actually getting a little bit darker. If I wanted to bring out a certain area, so like I really wanted this to look a little bit more green, in every gradient overlay, or in every type of adjustment overlay, you've got a layer mask. In a layer mask you can paint out whatever area you don't want it to affect. So choose your brush, make your painting black, and so wherever I paint black on here, make my brush a little bit bigger. Let's see, I got the wrong kind of brush. There we go. Wherever I paint black on here, it will unmask that area, so I can paint back in some of the green that's a part of it. Is this making sense? Lost y'all?
There we go.
And so it's just kind of a great way of putting color, if it's a little too much, back into what you're working with. I would probably not do something this extreme unless a composition called for it. A lot of people will send me photographs that they want to use in an advertisement or something, or a poster, and the poster may be like a summertime type poster, and the picture that they sent me may have been taking place in the winter, or may have a lot of blues in it. And so I'll put a color overcast on it, and it'll warm up whatever color that they're working from. And so that's what I did for when I did the blue overcast. And you can see the area where I de-highlighted it, else it would have been too blue on this. Let's see if I can, yeah, the bottle itself would have been way too dark to work on from there. Cool. So once you finish this, don't think that the painting itself is done. Play around with your adjustment layers and get your colors to pop, particularly get your lights to be a little bit lighter, get your darks to be a little bit darker, and then try to harmonize it by using a gradient overlay. So that tends to work out really well with that one. How far along did you get on this particular painting?
I have my